The fire cracks low beside me, brothers. Wood pops. Coffee's still steaming in my hand. Out here, it's quiet enough to hear old ghosts breathe. They tell you, when you leave the battlefield, the war stays behind. That's the lie. Sometimes the silence is worse than gunfire. Sometimes peace is just a thin blanket laid over something hungry. I learned that the hard way. Because even in a so-called safe zone, monsters still knock. Not with claws, with money, with arrogance, with the belief they own the night. So let me ask you this, brother. When you're pushed into a corner, when the line is crossed and there's nowhere left to step back, do you run or do you hold the line? One rainy night in Seattle, a powerful man mocked the wrong stranger.
I'm not asking, I'm telling
A
you.
limping veteran, a service dog trained to protect. Minutes later, a child vanished into the storm, and the past came calling like a loaded weapon. So sit down with me. Stoke the fire.
More heat, old friend.
Listen close. There's a lesson here every guardian needs before the next knock
Watch the
comes.
perimeter.
Rain over Pike Place. Cold rain drifted across Seattle like thin smoke, turning the streets slick and shining. Wind off Elliott Bay cut through coats and courage, while Pike Place Market glowed warm under string lights. Logan Pierce moved through the crowd at an unhurried pace, the way a man walked when he refused to be rushed by anything. He was 40, tall and broad-shouldered, built like someone who had spent years carrying weight and responsibility. A red and black flannel shirt lay beneath a dark jacket, and faded jeans and brown work boots took the punishment of the wet pavement. He favored his left leg with a slight limp, not dramatic, just honest, as if his body remembered something his face had learned not to show. At his side walked a 5-year-old black and tan German shepherd, large and steady, wearing a black tactical harness with bold white lettering that read, "Service Dog, Do Not Pet." The dog's head stayed level, ears alert, eyes tracking movement with calm intelligence. People made space without being asked. The animal did not bark, it did not pull, it simply worked. Logan preferred it that way. Most nights, he kept his world small. A modest apartment, a volunteer shift at the Veterans Center when he could stand the noise. A few errands that meant he did not have to sit alone with the memories that always arrived when the city quieted. Seattle gave him what he needed: rain to hide in and crowds to disappear into. Tonight, he carried a sealed envelope inside his jacket, meant for a coordinator at the center. Paperwork, funding approvals, nothing heroic. Just the kind of thing that kept a roof over someone's head. Logan had learned the hard way that quiet help mattered more than speeches. The dog paused for half a beat. Logan read the shift of posture the way other men read headlines. He followed the dog's gaze toward a small folding table near the edge of the market, tucked under an awning that did not quite block the rain. A woman stood behind the table, trying to keep her hands steady as she arranged handmade cards in neat rows. She looked about 32, with a slim frame and a face drawn tight by exhaustion. Her coat was old, the kind that had been repaired more than replaced. She wore worn gloves, and her hair was pulled back in a practical knot that said she did not have time to be anything else. Beside her was a little girl, 9 or so, with pale blonde hair escaping from a knitted hat. Her cheeks were pink from the cold, and her eyes were a clear gray blue that missed nothing. She clutched a battered tin paint box with paint stains along the edges, like it was both tool and comfort. The girl kept glancing up at passing strangers with a hopeful look she tried to hide. The mother smiled at people. It was a polite smile, the kind used to ask for mercy without begging. The girl's smile was different. It was curious, bright and stubborn, like a candle that refused to go out. Logan slowed as he approached. The dog stayed close, harness lettering visible. A few heads turned. Some people always stared when they saw the words on the vest, like they were trying to decide whether the animal was a threat or a miracle. Logan did not care what they decided. The girl shifted her weight, watching him with that careful artist's focus. Not fear, not admiration, just study. Like she was memorizing him the way she might memorize a face for a drawing. Then her paint box slipped. The tin clattered onto the wet ground, lid popping open. Small paint tubes rolled out like startled insects. A few cards slid from the table edge, threatened by the wind. The girl's breath caught. The mother reached down too late, hands already full. Logan bent at the knees, moving with the controlled precision of a man who did not waste motion. He gathered the paint tubes one by one. The dog stepped forward just enough to create a small barrier between the scattered items and the rushing crowd. People flowed around them without stepping on anything. The dog's eyes flicked from shoes to the girl's face and back again, calm as a metronome. "Thank you," the mother said. Her voice was quiet, but it carried a strain of pride. "You didn't have to." Logan handed the tin box back to the girl. Up close, he could see a faint smudge of blue paint on her thumb and a small scar near her knuckle, the kind kids got from living fast and falling often. "It happens," Logan said. The girl looked at the dog's harness, then up at Logan's face. "He's working," she said, like she already knew the rule. Logan's mouth twitched, almost a smile. "He is." The girl nodded once, satisfied. "I'm Mia," she said. "Mom is Emily." Emily's eyes flashed with surprise at how quickly her daughter offered names, then softened again. "We're just trying to sell a few cards," she added. For family stuff." Logan did not ask. He had learned that some stories were offered only when people felt safe. Mia reached across the table and held up one of the cards. It showed a little ferry on dark water under a sky full of stars, painted with careful hands. The words on the front were simple: peace, warmth, home. Logan looked longer than he meant to. Something in his chest shifted, a small ache he could not name. A loud laugh cut through the market noise. A man approached from the brighter, louder section of Pike Place, moving like he owned the wet ground under everyone's feet. He was around 47, white American, dressed in an expensive wool coat that did not belong in rain like this. His hair was slicked back, and his face had the confident shine of someone who rarely heard the word no. Two assistants trailed behind him, carrying branded bags and forced smiles. A private security guard followed with an earpiece and a scanning gaze. The man's eyes flicked over the table with quick contempt, then landed on Emily and Mia, as if they were an inconvenience placed in his path on purpose. "This is blocking the flow," he said, loud enough for nearby strangers to hear. "Did you get permission for this?" Emily stiffened. Her shoulders rose as if bracing for impact. "We have a permit," she said, reaching for a laminated card. The man did not wait to see it. He stepped closer and kicked the corner of the folding table with the toe of his polished shoe. The table jolted. Cards fluttered. A thin stack slid into a shallow puddle. Mia gasped and grabbed for them, hands shaking. Logan felt something old stir in his bones, something that had nothing to do with the rain. The man's gaze traveled to Logan's flannel, then down to Logan's boots, then to the slight hitch in Logan's stance. His mouth curled. "And what's this?" he said, nodding at the dog's harness. "A stunt?" The dog did not react, but Logan felt the shift in the animal's focus, the way attention sharpened like a blade. Emily swallowed. She tried to stand taller, but her eyes showed fear. The kind that came from knowing power did not play fair. Mia's face tightened, anger and embarrassment mixing together. She held the wet cards against her chest like she could keep them safe by sheer force. Logan stepped forward, placing himself between the table and the man's polished shoe. He did it quietly, but the space changed anyway. People nearby slowed. Even the assistants stopped smiling. "Leave them alone," Logan said. The man's eyes narrowed. He looked Logan up and down again, searching for something to mock. "Well, look at this," he said, amused. "A hero in a flannel shirt." Logan met his gaze and felt his own calm hold. Not because he was fearless, but because he had learned what happened when you let anger drive. The man leaned in, as if he wanted the crowd to hear every word. "Move along," he said, "before I call security and have that dog taken away." Mia flinched at the word taken. Logan's hand hovered near the harness, not gripping it, just steadying himself through the familiar presence beside him. He had come out tonight to deliver paperwork, nothing more. But Seattle had a way of placing the right trouble in front of a man who had sworn, even in silence, that he would never ignore the weak again. Behind the arrogant man, beyond the glow of the market lights, a child in a bright blue coat slipped through the crowd near a decorated booth, small and fast, and vanished into the rain without anyone noticing. Not yet. Logan noticed. And the dog noticed too, vanished between the lights. Rain thickened into a steady curtain, blurring the market lights into long golden streaks. The wind sharpened, carrying the smell of salt and cold metal from the bay. Logan Pierce shifted his weight, the wet pavement pressing up through worn boots. The red and black flannel beneath his jacket was darkening with rain, but he barely felt it. His attention had narrowed to a single point in the moving crowd. A child. Blue coat. Small frame. Gone. At his side, the German shepherd stood rigid, head low, nostrils flaring. The black harness with white lettering, "Service Dog, Do Not Pet," gleamed under the lights as the dog fixed on a direction and waited. Not pulling, not panicking. Working. Logan did not raise his voice. He never did when seconds mattered. "She went that way," he said, pointing toward the edge of the market near the decorated booth. His tone cut cleanly through the noise. Gavin Rhodes laughed once, sharp and dismissive, still riding the echo of his own authority. Up close, the man smelled of expensive cologne and impatience. He was 47, his tailored wool coat spotless despite the rain, his posture trained to command rooms rather than read them. "Enough of this," Gavin said. "Security will handle—" "Your daughter," Logan said, interrupting him. "She's not with you." The words landed wrong at first. Gavin's expression flickered, irritation giving way to confusion. He turned, scanning behind him. His assistants froze. The private security guard, a thick-necked man with an earpiece and a practiced stare, took 2 steps back and began a slow sweep. "Avery," Gavin called, irritation creeping into his voice. "Avery." No answer. The sound of the market swallowed the name. Gavin's face drained of color. Confidence cracked, replaced by something raw and frightened. He grabbed his phone, fingers clumsy on the screen. "She was just here," he said, more to himself than anyone else. "She doesn't wander." Logan watched the panic rise and felt a familiar, bitter recognition. Fear stripped people down faster than truth ever did. Mia stood close to her mother now, clutching the wet cards to her chest. Her gray-blue eyes followed the chaos, sharp and worried. "The girl in the blue coat," she said softly. "She walked fast, toward the ferry signs." Logan turned to her. "Did she talk to anyone?" Mia shook her head once. She looked angry, like she wanted to get away. Emily pulled Mia closer, her own face pale. She was right there, Emily said, guilt threading her voice. I should have seen. Logan crouched briefly in front of the dog, rain soaking into his jeans. He placed 2 fingers lightly against the harness, grounding himself as much as the animal. Find, he said, calm and precise. The dog lowered its nose to the wet ground, moving in a tight circle, sorting 1,000 smells into something usable. Then it turned, decisive, and began toward the darker edge of the market, where lights thinned and shadows thickened. Logan rose and followed without hesitation. Hey! Gavin snapped, panic sharpening into anger again. You don't give orders here. Logan did not look back. Then don't slow me down. The private security guard hesitated, torn between protocol and fear of liability. Gavin made a sharp gesture. Go, he barked. All of you. They moved as a loose cluster now, spilling out of the market's warm glow into colder streets. Rain pooled in shallow dips. Neon signs reflected off slick pavement. The dog tracked with quiet certainty, leading them toward the industrial side streets that bordered the ferry terminal. Logan's left leg protested as they picked up speed. The old injury flared, a dull burn that reminded him of nights he had dragged himself through worse conditions with less reason. He adjusted his stride, breathing steady. Pain was information, nothing more. Ahead, a narrow passage opened between 2 service buildings. The dog slowed, ears forward. Mia broke from her mother's side and ran 2 steps ahead before stopping herself. There, she said, pointing. That alley. A van was parked there earlier, no logos. Logan glanced at her, registering the detail. Good eye. Gavin reached the alley last. His breath came hard now, shoes slipping slightly. He looked smaller here, stripped of cameras and control. Avery! He shouted, voice cracking fully this time. Avery! Answer me! A sound drifted back from deeper in the alley. Not a scream, a muffled protest. A child trying not to cry. Logan felt the switch flip inside him, the cold clarity he trusted when everything else fell apart. He raised a hand, stopping the others. The dog's body went taut, waiting. A figure moved near the far end of the alley. A man, average height, hood pulled low, one hand gripping a small wrist. Avery. Her blue coat was unmistakable even in the dim light. Police are coming, Logan called, keeping his voice level. Let her go! The man spun, eyes wild, pulling Avery closer. A flash of metal caught the light. A knife, small but real. Avery's face was streaked with tears, fear frozen into her features. She struggled, shoes skidding on wet concrete. Gavin surged forward instinctively, shouting his daughter's name. The security guard grabbed him too late. Panic made Gavin reckless, loud, useless. Stop! Logan snapped, louder now. You'll make it worse! The man with the knife backed toward a chain-link fence, trapped. Rain ran down his hood, dripping from the blade. His gaze flicked from Logan to the dog and back again. Logan stepped forward alone, putting his body between the knife and everyone else. The dog stayed at his heel, perfectly still, a coiled threat the man could not ignore. Easy, Logan said. This doesn't end the way you think. For a heartbeat, everything balanced on breath and rain. Then the man lunged. Logan moved without thinking. He shifted his weight, ignoring the scream from his left leg, and drove forward. The dog surged at the same instant, not biting, but slamming into the man's side with controlled force. The knife clattered across the concrete. Avery stumbled free, falling hard. Logan caught her before she hit the ground, wrapping her in his jacket as the man went down under the combined weight of trained instinct and sudden fear. The security guard recovered enough to restrain the attacker. Sirens wailed in the distance, closer now. Gavin collapsed to his knees beside his daughter, sobbing openly, hands shaking as he pulled her close. "I'm here," he kept saying. "I'm here." Logan knelt too, rain soaking him through, his flannel heavy and cold. Avery clung to his jacket for a moment longer before turning back to her father. She looked at Logan once, eyes wide. "Thank you," she whispered. Logan nodded, already stepping back. He had not come out tonight to save anyone. But Seattle had decided otherwise. What the rain could not wash away. The rain softened into a cold mist, clinging to streetlights and concrete as sirens faded into the distance. Seattle felt quieter now, like the city was holding its breath. Logan Pierce stood near the alley mouth, shoulders squared beneath his dark jacket, the red and black flannel visible where the zipper hung open. Rain traced slow lines down his sleeves. The German shepherd remained at his side, black harness darkened with water, white letters still clear. Service dog, do not pet. The dog's breathing was steady again, work completed, eyes alert but calm. Avery sat on the back step of an ambulance, wrapped in a silver thermal blanket. She was small inside it, her blue coat peeking out at the collar. Her hands trembled as a paramedic checked her pulse and shined a light into her eyes. She kept glancing toward her father, as if afraid he might disappear if she looked away. Gavin Rhodes hovered inches from her, his expensive coat forgotten, rain soaking through wool and pride alike. His face was pale, eyes red, mouth working soundlessly between apologies and prayers he had not used in years. He reached for Avery again and again, stopping himself only when the medic gently told him to give space. "I'm sorry," Gavin said, voice breaking. I should have been watching you." Avery nodded once, exhausted. "I just wanted you to stop yelling," she whispered. The words landed harder than the rain ever could. Gavin closed his eyes. For the first time since Logan had seen him, there was no performance left. Just a father confronted with the cost of his anger. Logan watched from a few steps back. He did not intrude. He had learned when to step in and when to fade. His left leg throbbed now that the adrenaline was draining, a familiar ache blooming deep in the joint. He shifted his weight carefully, keeping his posture neutral. Pain had its place. Tonight, it would wait. Emily stood with Mia under the edge of a loading awning, both of them wrapped in borrowed blankets. Emily's hands shook as she smoothed Mia's damp hair. Mia leaned into her mother, but did not stop watching everything with those sharp, gray-blue eyes. "That man," Mia said quietly, nodding toward the alley. "He had the knife." Emily swallowed. "You did very well," she said. "You remembered details." Mia hesitated. "Is the other girl okay?" Logan turned at that. He crouched slightly so he was closer to Mia's height, rain dripping from his jacket. The dog shifted with him, settling protectively. "She is," Logan said, "because people paid attention." Mia considered that, then nodded, as if filing the thought away for later. A patrol car pulled up beside the ambulance. A man stepped out, tall and lean, wearing a dark jacket with the collar turned up. He moved with practiced calm, eyes scanning the scene before settling on Logan and the dog. "Detective Mark Jensen," he said, showing his badge. He looked about 42, with tired eyes and a face lined by long nights and unfinished coffee. His voice was steady, controlled. "You the one who intervened?" Logan nodded once. "I stepped in." Jensen's gaze flicked to the dog's harness, then back to Logan's face. There was recognition there, not personal, but professional. "Service animal?" "Yes." Jensen nodded. "That helps." They walked a few steps away, out of earshot. Rain whispered against the metal siding of the building. "You realize," Jensen said, "the man you stopped isn't acting alone." Logan's jaw tightened. "I figured." "We found communications on him," Jensen continued. "Phones. Meetups. This alley wasn't random. He was waiting." Logan looked back toward the ambulance, toward Avery and her father. He felt something settle into place inside him, cold and clear. He didn't pick the girl by accident. "No," Jensen said. "He picked a moment. Chaos. Crowds. Someone who wouldn't be noticed right away." Logan exhaled slowly. He thought of Gavin shouting, the way attention had been pulled in all directions except where it mattered most. He thought of how easily people like that man hid behind noise and money. Jensen studied him for a beat longer. "You hurt?" "My leg," Logan said. "Old injury." Jensen nodded, satisfied. "We'll need a statement." "You'll get it." As they spoke, another vehicle pulled up. A woman stepped out quickly, ponytail plastered to the back of her coat, eyes sharp despite the late hour. She moved with purpose toward the ambulance. "Hannah Brooks," she said to the paramedic, already reaching for gloves. She was in her mid-30s, white American, with steady hands and a face that balanced kindness and command. Her gaze flicked over Avery, then to Gavin. "I'm with the emergency department. I heard there was a child involved." Gavin looked up, desperate. "Is she going to be okay?" Hannah met his eyes without flinching. "She's shaken, but stable. That's what matters right now." She adjusted the blanket around Avery with gentle efficiency. "You did well," she told the girl. "You're safe." Avery nodded, eyelids heavy. Hannah glanced toward Logan and the dog. Her eyes paused on the harness, then lifted to Logan's face. There was no fear in her expression, just assessment. Respect. "Thank you," she said simply. Logan inclined his head. He felt something stir at the sound of her voice, unexpected and unwelcome. He pushed it aside. This night was not for that. Sirens echoed again, farther away now. The attacker was led past them in handcuffs, head down, rain dripping from his hood. Gavin flinched at the sight, then turned back to his daughter, wrapping his arms around her like he might never let go. Jensen returned. "We're going to need to talk more," he said to Logan. "There are threads here, security contracts, people who knew where to look." Logan nodded. He had already guessed as much. The dog leaned lightly against his leg, grounding him. Logan rested a hand briefly on the harness, feeling the steady strength beneath it. He had stepped in to stop one bad moment. Now he could see the shape of something larger, something rotten that rain alone would never wash away. And for the first time in a long while, Logan knew he would not walk past it. The price paid in full. Morning broke gray and sharp, the rain replaced by a cold wind that swept in from the water. Low clouds pressed down on Seattle, heavy with things that refused to stay hidden. Logan Pierce stood outside an aging warehouse near the industrial waterfront, collar of his jacket turned up against the wind. The red and black flannel beneath was clean now, but still worn soft by years of use. His left leg ached in a familiar way. Not enough to stop him, just enough to remind him of limits. Beside him, the German shepherd waited in perfect stillness, black harness snug against broad shoulders, white letters clear. Service dog, do not pet. This place smelled wrong. Old oil, rust, damp concrete. Logan trusted his instincts because they had kept him alive before, when trusting nothing had been worse. Detective Mark Jensen stood a few feet away, studying a clipboard. His dark jacket flapped in the wind, and his eyes were rimmed red from lack of sleep. He looked like a man who had been carrying unfinished cases for too long, and had finally found one thread worth pulling. "We traced the phones," Jensen said. "Payments, security contracts, all roads lead back here." Logan nodded once. "And Gavin's people?" Jensen's mouth tightened. "One of them, head of private security, name's Victor Hale." As if summoned by the name, a man stepped out from behind a line of parked vans near the warehouse doors. Victor Hale was mid-40s, thick through the shoulders, with a shaved head and eyes that never quite settled. He wore a dark coat and gloves despite the dry cold, posture defensive even before trouble arrived. Hale saw the police vehicles, then Logan, then the dog. His jaw set. "This is private property," Hale said, voice rough. "You don't have a warrant." Jensen lifted a folder. "Actually, we do." The wind carried the words inside the open warehouse door. Logan moved when Jensen moved, not ahead, not behind. The dog mirrored him, stepped silent on concrete. Inside, the warehouse opened into a cavern of shadows and scattered equipment. Crates sat stacked near the walls. A single light flickered overhead, humming like it didn't want to be noticed. Logan's senses sharpened. His breathing slowed. He felt the old switch flip again, the one that cut emotion down to something manageable. Hale backed away, eyes darting. "You don't understand," he said, voice rising. "I was told." "Told what?" Jensen said calmly. "To look the other way?" Hale's mouth opened, then closed. He lunged for a side door. Logan reacted without thought. He pushed off with his right foot, left leg protesting sharply as the concrete underfoot turned slick with condensation. His balance faltered for half a second. Pain flared, bright and dangerous. The dog surged forward at once, responding to the shift in Logan's body before any command was spoken. Not attacking blindly, controlling space. The German shepherd cut off Hale's path, body angled, teeth bared just enough to make the point. Hale spun, panic overtaking calculation. He swung a metal bar he'd grabbed from a workbench, wild and desperate. "Down," Logan said, voice low and absolute. The dog obeyed instantly, dropping its center of gravity as the bar whistled overhead. Logan moved again, ignoring the pain screaming up his leg. He collided with Hale, driving him backward into a stack of crates. Wood splintered. Hale went down hard, breath knocked from his lungs. But Logan's left foot slipped on the damp floor. He felt the jolt travel up his leg, sharp and ugly. He hit the ground on one knee, teeth clenched to keep the sound inside. Hale scrambled, reaching for something at his belt. Jensen was there now, weapon drawn, voice firm. "Don't." Hale froze. Handcuffs clicked into place moments later. Logan stayed where he was for a beat, one hand pressed to the floor, rainwater and grit soaking into his palm. The dog moved back to his side immediately, pressing close, steadying him without crowding. Hannah Brooks burst through the warehouse door seconds later, breath visible in the cold air. She had followed the radio chatter, intuition dragging her here faster than protocol. Her ponytail had come loose, strands of hair framing a face set in focused concern. She dropped to one knee beside Logan without hesitation. "Talk to me," she said, hands already assessing. "Did you hit your head?" "No," Logan said. His voice was tight. "Leg." She glanced at the angle of his knee, the tension in his jaw. "Old injury?" "Yes." Hannah nodded, already understanding more than he'd said. She moved with efficient gentleness, testing range, watching his face rather than the injury. "You pushed through it." "I had to." She met his eyes. "I know." That simple statement landed harder than sympathy ever could. Jensen returned, face grim but satisfied. "We've got enough here," he said. "Records, equipment." Hale's phone. "He's been funneling information for months." "And Gavin?" Logan asked. Jensen exhaled. "He's learning what it costs to ignore the rot under his feet. His contracts, his silence. It's all coming back on him now." Outside, police vehicles multiplied. The wind carried voices and radios and the distant sound of traffic. Consequences, arriving all at once. Hannah helped Logan to his feet slowly. He leaned on her for a brief second, weight shared, not taken. The dog stayed close, watching everything. "You didn't have to be here," Hannah said quietly. Logan looked at the warehouse, then at the horizon beyond it. "Someone did." Hannah studied him, seeing past the flannel and the limp and the quiet competence. She saw a man who had learned the cost of walking away. Inside the patrol car, Victor Hale stared straight ahead, hands cuffed, bravado gone. The warehouse doors yawned open behind him, spilling secrets into daylight. This was the kind of ending Logan understood. Not neat, not clean, but earned. The wind cut colder as they stepped back outside. Logan pulled his jacket tighter, flannel warm beneath it. The dog lifted its head, ears forward, ready again if needed. For the first time in a long while, Logan felt something settle inside his chest. Not relief, not victory. Accountability. What remains after the storm? Winter sunlight broke through thin clouds, pale and honest, reflecting off damp streets. Seattle felt quieter now, as if the city had finished speaking and was waiting to listen. Logan Pierce sat at a small outdoor table near the harbor, steam rising from a mug cupped between scarred hands. The red and black flannel was visible beneath his jacket, familiar and steady. His left leg rested outstretched, stiffness lingering but manageable. At his feet, the German shepherd lay alert but relaxed, black harness clean, the white words, "Service dog, do not pet," catching the light. A week had passed since the warehouse, long enough for headlines to fade and consequences to settle into their proper places. Gavin Rhodes no longer walked through crowds with cameras and confidence. His contracts were under review. His head of security sat in a cell. Lawyers spoke for him now. When Gavin had come to the hospital to thank Logan again, his voice had been small. He had not asked for forgiveness. He had not deserved it. He had simply said thank you, and meant it. That had been enough. Across the table, Hannah Brooks set down her coffee and smiled. The kind of smile that did not rush anything. She wore a simple coat and scarf, hair pulled back loosely, eyes clear. She looked like someone who knew how to stand in chaos without becoming part of it. "You're thinking again," she said. Logan glanced up. "It shows." She shrugged lightly. Only to people who pay attention. He looked out toward the water, ferries cutting slow paths through gray-blue waves. I don't usually stay, he said, after things end. Hannah followed his gaze. This didn't end, she said. It changed. Logan considered that. He thought of the warehouse doors yawning open, of Jensen's quiet nod when the cuffs clicked, of the way the dog had pressed close when his knee buckled, steady as a promise. He thought of Avery's whispered thank you and Mia's careful eyes. Change had always scared him more than endings. Endings were clean. Change asked things of you. Footsteps approached. Logan's hand moved instinctively to the dog's harness, then relaxed. Mia stopped at the edge of the table, bundled in a thicker coat than before. The battered paint box was still there but cleaned, the dents polished by care. Emily stood just behind her, posture straighter, eyes less tired. Hi, Mia said, voice soft but sure. Hi, Logan said. He shifted his chair back slightly, making space. Emily smiled, nervous but grateful. We didn't want to interrupt, she said. We just wanted to say goodbye. Goodbyes don't have to be final, Hannah said gently. Mia looked down at the dog. May I? She asked Logan, gesturing toward the harness. Logan met her eyes. You can talk to him, he said. That's enough. Mia nodded, crouching nearby without touching. You did good work, she said solemnly. The dog's tail thumped once against the ground. Mia reached into her coat and pulled out a folded card. She handed it to Logan with both hands. I made this, she said, for remembering. Inside, the card showed a man in a flannel shirt, standing beside a large dog under a clearing sky. The rain had stopped in the drawing. Light broke through clouds. Logan swallowed. Thank you, he said. He meant it. Emily touched Mia's shoulder. We're going to be okay, she said, as if she needed to say it out loud to believe it. Because people didn't look away. They left with a small wave, footsteps fading into the hum of the city. Hannah watched them go. She's going to be a good artist, she said. She already is, Logan replied. Silence settled again, not heavy, just present. Logan shifted his leg, winced slightly. You should take it easy, Hannah said. I will, he said. For a while. She studied him, then nodded. There's a community dinner tonight, she said. Nothing fancy, just people. Warm food. Logan hesitated. The old instinct tugged at him to retreat, to keep the edges clean and the nights quiet. Then he felt the weight of the card in his pocket and the steady presence at his feet. I can come, he said, for a bit. That evening, the hall was filled with mismatched chairs and honest laughter. No cameras, no speeches, just neighbors, volunteers, kids darting between tables. Logan stood at the edge at first, dog at his side, flannel sleeves rolled up. Then someone handed him a plate. Someone else asked about the dog. Hannah laughed at something Jensen said nearby, the detective looking more human without his badge. Logan sat. He ate. He listened. Later, as the crowd thinned and the lights dimmed, Logan stepped outside into the cold. The air smelled clean, rinsed by days of rain. Hannah joined him, shoulders brushing. You don't have to decide anything, she said. I know, he replied, but I can choose to stay. The dog lifted its head, ears forward, then relaxed again. Across the water, the city lights shimmered, imperfect and alive. Logan felt the ache in his leg, the old weight in his chest. and something new alongside them. Not hope the way movies sold it. Something quieter. Something earned. After the storm, some things were gone for good. What remained was enough. Sometimes the miracle is not thunder or fire. Sometimes it is a moment when someone chooses not to look away. Faith often works quietly. It shows up in the stranger who steps forward, the courage to do what is right when it would be easier to stay silent, and the grace to change after the truth is revealed. God does not always stop the storm, but He gives people the strength to stand in it and protect one another. In daily life, we face smaller versions of this choice every day: to speak up or stay comfortable, to help or to pass by, to act with love even when no one is watching. Those choices shape more than a single moment. They shape lives. If this story moved you, share it with someone who needs hope today. Leave a comment and tell us what part touched your heart. Subscribe to the channel for more stories of faith, justice, and quiet miracles. May God bless you and your family, now and always.